next chapter of the truth hiding in the shadows. I never believed in haunted hotels or cursed rooms. I travel often, and places are just places to me. But the night I checked into Ridgewood Mountain Lodge with my 12-year-old daughter Lily, I understood that fear does not wait for your permission. It walks straight in. The receptionist's hand shook when she handed me our room key. She didn't meet my eyes. She slid a folded note beneath the key, almost like she was afraid anyone might see it. I opened it under the counter, thinking maybe it was Wi-Fi instructions or a special welcome message. It was only 4 words. Do not sleep in 307. Before I could ask, Lily tugged my sleeve. Her voice was soft with concern. Mom, what's wrong? The receptionist leaned forward. Her voice was barely more than a breath. Please ask for another room. I'll arrange it. Just don't stay in that one. The last guest never left. I thought she meant someone skipped checkout. Maybe a criminal on the run, or someone refusing to leave. But when I looked up, the receptionist's eyes had filled with tears she was trying not to release. That was the first moment I felt it. Not a presence, but a warning. A mother's instinct telling me something was wrong. I am making this video because what happened in that hotel changed me. If my daughter hadn't been with me, I might have ignored every sign. But when something targets your child, fear becomes fuel. Stay with me until the end. And if you believe every life has a story worth telling, subscribe and comment where you're watching from because what I'm about to share is the truth. My name is Ava Beaumont. I am 38 years old, and for the last year, I have been trying to rebuild my life piece by piece after my marriage ended. My daughter Lily is my whole world, and I promised her a peaceful weekend away from everything. No calls, no arguments, just us, somewhere quiet. Ridgewood Mountain Lodge was supposed to be that place, an old historic hotel tucked deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains, surrounded by trees so tall they disappeared into the clouds. The website had pictures of fireplaces, hiking trails, and a view of the valley that made you feel like the world stretched out just for you. As we walked into the lobby, I noticed how different it felt in person. It was beautiful, yes, but too quiet. There were people sitting in the lounge, but no one was talking. A fire burned in the stone fireplace, yet the air felt cold. Lily held my hand tightly. She has always been sensitive to energy. Ever since she was little, she could walk into a room and tell when something wasn't right. She looked around steadily and whispered, "Why is everyone acting like they're waiting for something?" I squeezed her hand back and smiled. They're just tired from traveling. But even I knew that wasn't true. There was tension in the air, like a storm was about to break inside the building itself. I approached the front desk to check in. The woman behind the counter wore a name tag that read, Maria. Her hair was pulled into a neat bun, and she tried to smile, but her lips just trembled. She typed my name into the computer, then stopped suddenly. Her eyes shifted from the screen to me and back again. "You booked room 307, she said quietly. "That's right," I replied. She didn't move. She just stared. Then, without saying another word, she slid the key and the note toward me. When she told me the last guest never left, I felt Lily step behind me, half hiding as if something in the room had already called to her. I took a deep breath. I told myself hotels have stories. Every old building has history. Maybe someone ran off in the middle of the night. Maybe someone had a medical emergency. There had to be a logical reason. I thanked Maria, trying to stay polite despite her strange behavior. But when I turned to leave, I heard her whisper, "Please don't put your daughter in that room." Her voice broke on the last word, as if she had just revealed something she wasn't allowed to say. That was the moment I should have walked away, but I didn't. And by the time I realized what was waiting for us in room 307, it was too late. Lily and I walked down the long carpeted hallway toward the 3rd floor. The elevator doors opened with a slow metallic groan that echoed down the corridor. As soon as we stepped off, the temperature changed. The air felt heavier, colder, like the hallway was breathing around us. The lights were dimmer on this floor than in the lobby, and the silence was unnerving. There were no housekeeping carts, no sounds of television or voices behind doors, just stillness, as if the entire floor was holding its breath. Our room was at the far end, room 307, A brass number hung slightly crooked on the door, like someone had tried to rip it off and failed. Lily hesitated. "Mom," she whispered, "can we ask for another room?" Her voice wasn't scared. It was certain, like she knew something already. I wanted to be brave for her. I told myself we couldn't let a note and a nervous receptionist ruin our weekend. I slid the keycard in. The light flicked green. The door clicked open. The room was spotless, almost too perfect. A double bed with crisp white sheets, a window with heavy curtains drawn tight, and a small table with 2 glasses and a water pitcher. It smelled faintly of lavender, but beneath it, there was something else, a sharp hint of metal, almost like old blood. Lily walked to the window. "It's already open," she said. I frowned. I hadn't touched the curtains yet. When I moved them aside, the window was cracked open, letting in the cold mountain air. Outside, the view was breathtaking, but instead of feeling peaceful, it felt exposed, like something could be watching us from the trees. A sudden bang made us both jump. It came from the bathroom. I rushed in and found the faucet running full force. I turned it off and tried to laugh it off as a plumbing issue, but Lily stood in the doorway, her face pale. "Mom, someone was just in here," she said. "I heard footsteps." I checked the closet and under the bed. Nothing. Yet the feeling of being watched didn't leave. Instead, it grew stronger, prickling the back of my neck. To distract Lily, I suggested we unpack and go down for dinner. As I reached for my suitcase, I noticed a small brass key on the floor near the nightstand. It wasn't ours. It was old, with the initials JR carved into it. I held it up. Lily stared at it like she had seen it before. We left the room quickly. In the hallway, Lily clutched my arm. "Mom," she said quietly, "when you were in the bathroom, I heard someone whisper my name. It wasn't your voice." My first instinct was to tell her she imagined it, but the words died in my throat, because I had felt it too, that cold breath on my skin, like someone standing just behind me. At dinner, the dining hall was nearly empty. Only a few guests sat silently at their tables, eating without speaking. Lily picked at her food, glancing toward the hallway that led back to the rooms. A man at the next table suddenly stood up and approached us. He was in his 60s, wearing a flannel jacket. His eyes were tired. "Are you in 307? He asked. I hesitated. "Yes." "Why?" He nodded, as if confirming something. "That room should have been sealed. My brother never came out of there. They said he ran away, but I know what I heard that night." Before I could ask more, a staff member rushed over and guided him back to his table. The man kept staring at us until we left the dining room. Back in the room, Lily refused to sleep in the bed. She made a spot on the floor with extra blankets. I tried to make light of it, telling her it would be like a camping adventure, but even my voice sounded forced. As I prepared for bed, I heard tapping on the wall. Soft at first, like fingernails, then louder, rhythmic, as if someone were trying to signal us. Lily looked up from her blanket. "It's coming from the other side," she whispered, but room 308 was unoccupied. I pressed my ear to the wall. The tapping stopped. Then a long, low sound began. A voice, a woman's voice. It was faint but unmistakable. She was crying. Not loudly, but the sound was raw, filled with a pain that went beyond life. I stepped back in shock, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. Lily spoke softly. "Mom," she said, tears forming in her eyes. "She's still here." And in that moment, I finally believed it. Someone had never left room 307. Sleep did not come that night. I lay in bed with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling in the dark. Every now and then I heard faint footsteps in the hallway, followed by the sound of someone breathing outside our door. I wanted to believe it was another guest, but something about the breathing didn't feel human. It came in long, shaky gasps, as if someone were trying to remember how to breathe at all. Lily slept restlessly beside me on her blankets, clutching the old brass key with the initials JR. Her fingers curled around it like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the lights flickered. The silence in the room thickened until I could hear nothing but my own heartbeat. Then a cold blast of wind rushed through the room, even though the window was closed. I sat up quickly. In the dim light from the lamp, I saw an imprint forming at the edge of the bed. The blanket pressed down as if someone invisible had just sat beside me. My breath caught in my chest. Lily woke at the same moment and looked directly at the empty space. Her eyes widened, but she didn't scream. She only whispered one word, "Bride." The imprint slowly sank deeper, like someone was lowering their head into their hands. A quiet sob echoed through the room, but it wasn't coming from the hall or outside. It was right next to us. I reached for Lily and pulled her close. The air shifted again, and suddenly the sound stopped. The indent in the blanket lifted. The room went still. That was the moment I knew this was no prank, no imagination, no malfunctioning pipes. Someone was in that room with us. Not alive, but not gone. I had a choice to make. I could grab my daughter and run to the car in the middle of the night, never look back, and pretend this never happened. But what if by doing so, I left someone trapped forever? What if the reason she reached out was not to scare us, but to ask for help? Morning came slowly, as if the sun itself was reluctant to touch the hotel. I went downstairs with Lily to confront Maria. Her face turned pale when she saw us. "You stayed," she said quietly. "You shouldn't have stayed." I placed the brass key on the counter. "Who is JR?" Maria stared at the key for a long moment before answering. "Julianne Rhodes," she finally said. "My sister." The air in the lobby went still. Even the guests seemed to freeze in place. Maria continued. 20 years ago, she came here the night before her wedding. Her fiancé insisted they spend one last night here before the ceremony the next day. No one saw her alive again after she entered room 307. "What happened to him?" I asked. "He disappeared," she replied. "They said she ran away with him, but I know she didn't leave that room willingly. I heard her scream. I was standing right here when it happened. They told me it was just pipes and wind, but I know my sister's voice." Lily looked up at Maria and said gently, "She cried last night. She sat on our bed." Maria covered her mouth and began to shake. I saw the pain in her eyes, not fear anymore, but grief. "Why never close the room?" I asked. "They did," she said. "For years it was sealed, but new management opened it again last month. They said we needed the income. They said ghosts don't pay bills." Her hands trembled as she reached for the key again. "I begged them to keep it closed. I should have demanded a different room. I should have packed our bags." But a strange calm settled over me instead. I turned to Lily. "Do you want to leave?" She looked up at me with steady eyes. "She doesn't want us to leave. She wants us to find her." Fear rose in my chest, but something stronger rose with it. Purpose. My daughter was not terrified anymore. She was determined. We returned to room 307 with a plan, not to escape the haunting, but to end it. I set my phone on the nightstand with the camera facing the bed and tapped record. My hands trembled, but my mind was clear. If something happened again, I was going to see it. As the evening shadows stretched across the room, Lily lifted the corner of the rug near the bed. The floorboard beneath was loose. We exchanged a look. I knelt down and pulled it up carefully. Inside the hollow space was a small velvet pouch coated in dust and dried stains. I opened it slowly. Inside lay a gold wedding ring. Next to it was a folded slip of paper, stiff and brown with age. I opened the note, 4 words, written in faded ink. "He will never let me leave." My blood ran cold. That was the moment everything changed. This was not a haunting. It was a cry for justice. Night fell faster than it should have. It was only 6 in the evening, but the sky outside the window had already turned black, as if the mountain had pulled a curtain over the world. The silence in room 307 grew heavier with every second, pressing against our skin, making every breath feel like an effort. My phone was still recording on the nightstand, its small red light glowing in the dark like a watchful eye. The gold wedding ring lay in my palm. It was cold, unnaturally cold, as though it had been resting at the bottom of a frozen lake instead of beneath a floorboard. Lily sat beside me, watching the ring with wide eyes. She wasn't trembling anymore. There was a strange calm in her face, as if she already knew this night would not be like the others. Suddenly, the temperature in the room plummeted. I watched my own breath escape in a white cloud. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out. Only the moonlight from the window remained, casting pale beams across the carpet. Then we heard it. A soft, steady tapping on the mirror. Tap, tap, tap. Not random. A rhythm, like a message. I stood slowly, holding the ring tightly. Lily stayed on the bed, clutching the brass key to her chest. The tapping grew louder. Tap, tap, tap. Then the mirror began to fog from the inside, as though something was breathing on the other side of the glass, trying to escape into our world. I stepped forward, every instinct in me screaming to run, yet my feet moved on their own. In the fog, letters began to appear, as if traced by an invisible finger. At first, it was a single word. Help. The air behind me stirred. Lily gasped. I turned and froze. A woman stood in the corner of the room. She wore a wedding dress, soaked in dried, dark stains. Her veil was torn. Her eyes were full of fear, not anger, and they were fixed on the ring in my hand. She did not walk. She drifted forward, her feet never touching the ground. As she moved, the room shook with a low groan, as if the walls themselves could feel her pain. I forced myself to speak. "Julianne," I said softly, "is this your ring?" The ghost stopped. Her expression changed. Her eyes softened, then filled with sorrow. Slowly she raised her hand. Her fingers trembled in the air, reaching for the ring that had been taken from her in her final moments. Before I could place it in her hand, a violent bang shook the room. The bathroom door slammed shut. The television turned on by itself, blasting static. The air crackled like electricity. Lily cried out, clutching her ears. I grabbed her and pulled her behind me. The ghost's face twisted in terror, not at us, but at something behind her. The mirror shattered. Glass exploded outward, and the room plunged into complete darkness, except for a faint glow now forming near the broken mirror. The light took shape, tall, dark, human, but where a face should have been, there was only a shadow with eyes that burned like coals. Julianne's ghost recoiled. She tried to speak, but no words came out, only a choking gasp, as if she were being pulled backward by force. Lily screamed, "He won't let her go!" In that moment, I understood. It wasn't the bride haunting room 307. It was her murderer. He had trapped her spirit, keeping her prisoner in the place where he ended her life, feeding off her pain, refusing to let her move on. The shadow figure moved toward us. The room trembled. The air grew so thick my lungs burned. I clutched the wedding ring and shouted into the darkness, "You cannot have her anymore." The lights exploded back on. The figure let out a roar that shook the walls. Every light bulb burst, showering sparks. The windows slammed open. A blast of icy wind tore through the room. Lily clung to my waist, her face buried in my side. At that moment, the ghost of Julianne turned her eyes to mine. They were no longer filled with fear, but with desperate hope. She placed her hand over her heart, then pointed toward the wall behind the bed. I understood instantly. I ran to the wall and felt along the wallpaper. There was a seam, almost invisible. I pulled, and a hidden door popped open. Inside the narrow space was a body, bones wrapped in the remnants of a wedding dress. The room went silent, utterly silent. The shadow figure shrieked, a sound that pierced the air like metal shredding. Its form flickered, growing weaker, losing power as the truth was exposed. Julianne's ghost stepped toward her remains. As she touched them, a warm light began to radiate from her chest. The darkness recoiled. The shadow dissolved into the air, sucked out through the broken mirror, gone as if it had never existed. Julianne turned to us one last time. Her face was peaceful now. She mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." Then she vanished in a burst of light, leaving the room still and quiet for the first time since we entered. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. I could only listen to the silence and feel my daughter's heartbeat against my arm. Room 307 was no longer haunted, but the truth it revealed would change everything. A team of investigators arrived before dawn. The hotel staff had already cleared the floor and locked down room 307. Lily and I sat in the lobby wrapped in blankets, sipping hot tea that Maria brought us with trembling hands. For the first time since we arrived, she looked relieved rather than afraid. The weight she had carried for 20 years had finally lifted from her shoulders. The sheriff, a tall man with tired eyes, approached me after inspecting the room. His face was pale. "We found her," he said quietly. "There's no doubt it's Julianne Rhodes. And we also found a set of fingerprints on the inside of that wall. Someone had sealed it from the outside." His voice softened. "Her fiancé had signed the hotel registry that night. He never checked out either. We believe he escaped and changed his identity. But what he did to her, no one deserves that." The staff gathered in silence as Julianne's remains were carried out. Some of them cried openly. Maria stood as the gurney passed, her hand pressed against her heart. She whispered her sister's name and closed her eyes as if releasing a breath she had been holding for decades. The air in the hotel changed at that moment. The tension, the heaviness, the fear, it vanished like smoke. The building didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt lighter, peaceful, as if it had been trapped in a nightmare all these years and finally woken up. Lily rested her head on my shoulder. She looked exhausted, but there was a calmness in her eyes, a kind of wisdom a child should not have to carry, yet she carried it with grace. "She wasn't trying to hurt anyone," Lily said softly. "She just wanted someone to know the truth." I wrapped my arm around her and kissed her forehead. "You helped her," I told her. "You were brave when it mattered." Maria sat beside us and took my hand. "Thank you for not running," she said. "Most people hear a whisper of what happened in that room and flee. But you stayed. You listened. You gave my sister what no one else would. Your courage." I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a mother who did what she had to do. But in that moment, I also felt something else. Healing. Not just for Julianne, not just for Maria, but for myself. All the pain I carried from my past, every moment I felt powerless or forgotten, suddenly felt transformed. Facing that darkness made me realize my strength had been there all along. As police cars and forensic teams pulled away from the hotel, dawn finally broke over the mountains. The sky glowed with soft shades of pink and gold. Lily stood beside me at the window and whispered, "It feels different." She was right. The world outside seemed alive again. The birds began to sing. The sun touched the trees with gentle light. The hotel, once silent and suffocating, now felt like it was exhaling after years of holding its breath. We were allowed to check out without charge. As I gathered our bags, Maria approached with the brass key. She pressed it into my hand. "Keep it," she said, "not as a memory of fear, but as proof that the past always seeks truth, and sometimes the living are chosen to speak for the ones who no longer can." I closed my fingers around the key. It no longer felt cold. On our drive home, Lily finally fell asleep, her face peaceful against the window. I watched the road ahead, feeling a quiet sense of clarity. This trip was supposed to be about escaping my problems, finding a break from life, but instead, it taught me something much more powerful. We don't overcome fear by running from it. We overcome it by facing it, understanding it, and turning darkness into light. Julianne was not a ghost of vengeance. She was a ghost of truth, and the truth set her free. In the weeks that followed, news about the discovery at Ridgewood Mountain Lodge spread across the country. The hotel temporarily closed, and plans began to honor Julianne with a memorial site. Maria reached out to me often. She told me she could finally sleep through the night. As for me, I started feeling a shift inside. I no longer woke up dreading the future. The same strength that helped set Julianne free helped me begin to rebuild my own life. I started therapy, reconnected with my sister after years of silence, and began writing again, this time with a purpose. There are places in this world where pain gets trapped, where sorrow anchors itself to time. But I believe something now that I didn't believe before. No soul stays lost forever. When light is brought into the darkest room, no matter how long it has been hidden, the truth always finds its way through. And sometimes, that light comes from the last people you would expect, like a divorced mother searching for peace, and a brave little girl who refused to be afraid. This was not just a haunting. This was a plea to be seen. This was justice. If this story moved you, if you believe every voice deserves to be heard, even after death. Make sure you subscribe and comment where you are watching from. Your support helps bring these truths to light.